So, so one of the questions that has come in, well, it's not really a question, but a comment. Thank you, Derrick. Your presentation is very moving and motivating. I find it comforting that you are still working the steps of resilience.
Great.
Question, February 8th, 2014 was my daughter's first seizure at age 12. Worst day of my life. You're right that people around you are crucial. Have you heard of Camp Eager? Happiest and best week of my daughter's life. Hope your son could spend a week there. It's amazing. Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. I haven't heard of that that camp. Can't be more about it.
And so someone does go on to ask about what Camp Eager is. So Mike, I don't know if you want to jump in for a second.
Sure. I thank you very much, Derrick. That was a fantastic story and very moving and emotional. I got that from the video, so thank you so much. Camp Eager is a camp for children with epilepsy, and our agency puts it on every year. We've had it for decades. We've had 30 plus years, and it's an opportunity for kids to go to camp and spend a week doing things that kids should do at that age, wall climbing, swimming, boating, and also networking with each other and meeting each other, knowing that they're not alone in the journey of epilepsy. And so we're gearing up for Camp Eager 2024, and we also have a young adult camp too for individuals who have epilepsy, intellectual and developmental disabilities over the age of 18, so they can continue that camp experience. So that's what camp is, but I want to bring it back to Derrick and have Derrick address some of the questions that come in. If you have anything that you guys want to say or ask Derrick, now is your opportunity.
So we do have another question here. First of all, thank you for sharing. You are an inspiration. How is Matthew doing, and how did he cope with these challenges?
Matt's doing pretty well. He said minimal support today at school. He's in 11th grade. Look realistically towards college. Number of hours a day. Loves to work. Very disciplined, not only in his workout routine, but also in his preparation. I think with the ketogenic diet, although he doesn't remember it really, right? Because he was so young, he was only 2.5 years old, and by the time he was off of the diet. But I think for us and the miracle that we experienced as a result of approach, modeled a certain experience, and he has clearly picked. I think for Matt, what we through, because it's a picture memory for him because he was so young. A different journey for him. I think for us, I feel it today. I mean, even during the presentation, you can tell I get emotional because I still feel it. And I know for him, he's a normal kid, right? Clearly recognizes the fact that he has some awareness that he's, but I think the experience was different. But no, he's doing great. We're very lucky, and that's why we try to pay it forward. Thank you for your question.
Another question is, did doctors explain why the ketogenic diet worked after 2 years and was not needed long-term for seizure freedom?
I think we talked a little bit earlier this morning about that, and although we did the ketogenic diet, what's extremely interesting with Matthew's case, because there was a new challenge and a new growth opportunity. So the ketogenic diet back in 2009, it wasn't as accessible as it is today, right? There weren't as many shake options and kind of pre-made options to kind of get that right fat, protein, and carbohydrate ratio. We were admitted into Boston Children's Hospital, and we were taught how to go through the process of weighing all the food on a gram scale and being very meticulous about how to do it. But the one tricky thing for Matt that caused us to pivot during this was depends upon getting a majority of the fat from dairy and nuts. And lo and behold, Matthew was allergic to both of those. So it made a very difficult treatment plan even more challenging. And I can laugh about it now, but I'll tell you, back then it was every time we turned a corner, it was something. So we pivoted. We basically at Boston Children's Hospital and say, hey, listen, getting the fat macadamia nuts, because for some reason macadamia nuts he wasn't allergic to, very hard. Isn't this just a chemistry project for Matt? And they laughed at me and asked, well, why do you say that? I said, well, how about I just give him a Dixie cup of canola oil to replace the fat to stay in ratio? And I'm not recommending telling you my story, right? Because it's a squiggly line. And they said, we've never done that. But because of the challenges and the 100 seizures a day and nuts and milk aren't accessible to him, why not? So we did. So when we say ketogenic diet, we did like ketogenic diet hybrid or whatever you want to call this. I don't even know. He basically would take his pre-measured gram scale piece of chicken that was like a silver dollar size. He would take his half a strawberry or a couple of blueberries or whatever that my wife would meticulously weigh out every single day for 2 years. And he would take a shot of canola oil. And we were the family that would be sitting in a restaurant. He'd get out his lunchbox and we'd have his bottle of canola oil and he would drink that. So Matt is a miracle, right? The fact that we had the wherewithal and the focus to go down the path and make these decisions is clearly a miracle, but it was because we didn't do it alone, right? Besides, our strong faith in the family and in the Epilepsy Foundation, we were able to kind of take some of these risks. And that's was challenging about his diagnosis and how rare it is and so forth. Now, traditionally, the ketogenic diet you do for that period of time. And over that period of time, every week we would take just a fraction of the medications away because we had to get off of so many of them, as you saw. And at the end of 2 years, he had been seizure free for 18 plus months. I mean, literally, he was on the diet 3 months. Woke up one morning and he didn't have a seizure, right? Because every morning he would wake up at 6:30 in the morning, right? We would wake up and that would be the kind of the profile. And he didn't that day, and then he didn't the next day, and he didn't the next day, and he didn't. And then for 2 years we stayed on the diet. And I remember when he was off the diet, he's like, Dad, can I have a slice of pizza? And it was the scariest day ever, right? All the days were scary, but that was scary. And he had a slice of pizza, and I've got a picture of that to this day. And it sounds silly, but it was a precious moment. So I think the medical experts can talk a lot more about what's been proven and what's understood about the ketogenic diet and why that time frame is important and why that is really what was and continues to be recommended as far as a typical period of time.
Thank you so much for that. I'm not seeing any other questions, but tons of thank you, very motivating, very inspirational. Thank you for all you do for our community and the Epilepsy Foundation of Northeastern New York. Just, lots of appreciation for being able to share the journey that you and your family went through. And as I'm saying that, a comment did come in. My last 6 years brought my parents and then my husband of 54 to pass away. My son then started seizures, now has about a seizure a week. Our life is myself and my son and a 25-year-old daughter. All never saw my son's seizures. I understand and I pray, and I know you're sharing and knowing there are other parents who are like us. I feel so helpless every seizure, but I believe your help is felt.
Thank you. I appreciate that comment, and I'm glad it's helping. It's a journey. There's hard days, right? They're not by no means is any of this easy, right? I just think as time has gone on, reflecting on this and all the other hard things as you share in your story too of loss and challenge in life, I have found peace. I have found strength, and I found my ability to think about life differently through that process. And it's because of I would say my educational background of kind of being more of a product manager and an engineering person, but also one that craves certainty, thrown into just all kinds of experiences that have opened wonderful doors. And I wouldn't change it. But that for me, putting down that process on a piece of paper is kind of my reminder when I get scared, when I get alone, when I don't know what to do. I always think of, am I taking care of myself? Because I'm no good to anybody else. And if I can remember that, how I come into the day, how I energize myself, and how I think about the schedule I'm keeping, my thoughts are better, my mindset's better. And ultimately, it helps me to do the things I need to do that I can control going forward. So thank you for sharing your story and your
So
thoughts.
it's almost like it just reminds me of, when you're in an airplane and you're told to put your mask on.
It is.
And it's, just so true.
It is. It is. And I love what was presented earlier today about welcome to Holland. I love that because I was that guy, right? I was that guy. Our daughter had a stroke at birth, and that was scary. It took us 7 years to have the courage to have another child. And then, Matt was born. It was wonderful. We were like, okay, things are going to be different. That early years aren't going to be challenging. And it wasn't for 2.5 years. And then it was. And I do feel like I got off the plane in Holland instead of Italy, both beautiful places. But I think that is a common feeling. And I think just knowing that we all go through this helps, right? I was alone because I chose to be alone, right? There are lots of people that are willing to help. There are periods though when you want to be alone, and I needed to be alone, right? I think we all kind of iterate through that in our own way, but it's important.
How wonderful that the diet worked for you. Congratulations. I'm wondering if the pharmaceuticals cannot come up with a drug that mirrors what the ketogenic diet does. So of course, that might not be a question that you can address or answer, but certainly we can get back to you regarding whether there are any developments or work in that area. Suzanne, thank you for the question.
Yeah, I mean, my only comment on that is I think watching the presentation this morning, tremendous progress, tremendous treatments. A lot of that wasn't available, 13 years ago. I think it's an incredibly complex situation, and I do think it's personal, and I think we have to kind of work with our trusted providers and our healthcare and epilepsy organizations to get the right information, to make the right decisions for that choice. And I think in some cases, right, as was mentioned this morning, the ketogenic diet is an option for certain types of epilepsy, not all. I think there's a lot to learn and a lot that we are learning about food. But in no case is any one medicine right for every situation.
Yeah, actually, someone did write in that they tried the keto diet for their daughter at age 15, but it didn't work for them, and that's just like with the medications.
Correct. It's hard. I mean, let's face it. It's hard. Think about this, right? Pre-measuring all the food, managing the ratios, going to the blood draws. It was hard. We just happened to have a situation where, my wife was working part-time. She could manage that. My company was very supportive, right? We had all the right village around us. We're just lucky. It's just a miracle. And we could have walked away from this. I could not be here today, but I see the gift that's been given to us. And I think that there are pieces that we've learned that hopefully can help other people.
one of the moms that on just said thank you, and that she's going to start journaling. She's going to take your advice and start journaling to help herself and her in her situation. Someone asked, can you talk a little bit more about your marathons to raise money and awareness for epilepsy? For others who might not run, maybe everyone can think of some way to raise awareness for epilepsy this November, which is National Epilepsy Awareness Month.
Yeah. So, the journey started back in 2009 when the Epilepsy Foundation of Northeastern New York did their first stroll for epilepsy, right? And I've still got the newspaper. For those of you old enough to understand what a newspaper is, a newspaper with the picture on the front page of the Saratogian of my wife and my brother-in-law pushing Matthew in that first stroll. And that began kind of a journey of raising epilepsy awareness through the walk. And as time went on, and I wanted to kind of raise awareness in different ways because we're all bombarded with just so many great causes and so many great things. I was like, well, how could I like do something a little extraordinary? And I started thinking about the fact that 1 in 26 people have epilepsy, right? And I said, I know I can run 1 mile, and I've always loved to run. My wife and I love to run, but never that far. And the marathon became that symbol of honoring the 1 in 26 people. It reminds me how hard the journey is, because if any of you have ever run any distance, I don't care if it's a mile or if it's 26 miles, there are periods of sheer exhaustion, sheer panic, sheer I don't want to go any further. And I think that running journey, especially the marathon, when you get to that 20, that 21, that 22, and you hit that wall and you just want to hit the eject button. I just finished the one this past October, and it was my worst ever because I'm not a good runner at all, right? And I do it because I think it keeps me humble. It reminds me of the journey, and I do it for that family, that one person that is struggling, right? That is on their own journey, right? That maybe is, I don't know, hitting that wall, so to speak, as we talk about when you run a marathon. So that's the spirit behind it. I'll be honest with you, every time I do one, it's only been 5 of them for the last 5 years. Part of it also came about because of the pandemic, and none of us could be together for the walk and so forth. I actually did one across the county that I live in, and I had people meet me at every mile to kind of motivate me along the way. But that's why I do it, to kind of just raise awareness, right? That how important this cause is, and that I'm willing to put my mind and body through that process to hopefully help other people.
Thank you. So I think you almost basically answered the question, but someone asked if you could explain the T-shirt that you're wearing, and what the significance is.
Yeah, so it is. And I've got it on right now too. It's just getting that message out. I don't think people realize the prevalency of it. I know I didn't. Even though my daughter had that stroke at birth, hers was different. I mean, she was all swaddled up in her blanket. We just gotten home and put her in the bassinet, and not 3 minutes later, we can just see her moving funny, and 14 hours later in the emergency room, it was diagnosed that she had a seizure. And so when Matt had his, again, like I said, I did everything wrong because I just didn't know what to do. So part of it is just helping raise awareness in a very simple fashion in numbers, so people see like, wow, that's a lot. Like, how many times are you in a room where it has at least 26 people, right? It's a lot. It's trying to get across the prevalency of it, and also just raise that awareness, in the event that you see something.
There is a question about how did your son deal with the side effects of the medication, if any?
So he was little. I'll tell you, there were many. From that morning when when he had his first seizure to the time we put him on the ketogenic diet, we'd all been through a lot. Some of those medications back then, right, they're not necessarily for children, but they were the best that we had. And we trusted the process, we trusted the approach. And as we mentioned earlier this morning, unfortunately, there are side effects, and you just hope that the side effects are less than the effects of the seizures. And he did change. Once you get on enough of anything, even have too much Thanksgiving dinner, right? You change. He was a little comatose at times. He wasn't himself. That feedback loop was really important. I coped by staying present and being a meticulous note taker. We heard this morning about keeping that log. It is important. It is. And at times my emotions could go away with me. And having the frequency of the seizures, knowing what he was eating the days in which his seizures were worse, gave us some confidence that the ketogenic diet might be a good option. Knowing what days he was more despondent, more absence versus more drop attacks. Because Matthew, I didn't talk completely about this, but Matt had them all, right? He was absence, drop attacks, tonic-clonic, myoclonic, right? Like he had them all. And that happened at the moment of waking up. So most of us want our kids to go to sleep. When he goes to sleep, we worry about him waking up. And that was after naps. That was in the morning. And it impacted him. I saw his face change, right? We even talked about the fact that when we were done with the diet, this makes me cry, but the side effect was we felt like we lost him. And slowly, as we did the ketogenic diet, slowly as he came off those 5 medications, the side effects subsided. He came back to us, and I think, unfortunately, right, that is part of the process. That's part of the diagnosis. I think that's part of any diagnosis. I don't care what the diagnosis is. There are side effects to everything. Whether that's food and what we came to believe, whether it's 100% true or not, but it led us down the path. We just noticed the days that he was eating certain foods, high in carbohydrates, high in gluten, whatever. Through my note taking and my kind of statistical keeping track as best I could, it just looked like those days were worse. And the days where we didn't give him any of that stuff, they were less. So we brought that back. And I think sometimes, not always, right, but sometimes there is a message in the side effect. And I think trying to stay present, trying to continue to partner with who you're working with is so important, because it was frustrating, because it felt like every time we added a drug, he changed and got different. And by staying present and staying calm and staying patient, although we were terrified, right, it allowed us to kind of communicate in a constructive, complete manner that allowed the professionals that make these decisions make the right tweaks, make the right adjustments, help us have the courage to jump to the ketogenic diet and be willing to make those investments of measurement and time and energy and while still keeping our hope.
So there are not any more questions that I can see. So I just want to thank you for again sharing such a personal journey, and I just want to say that thank you for continuing the fight and continuing shedding awareness, even though you are basically out of it right now, but you continue to advocate for all of those that are not. So really very much appreciated. Thank you very much. I've put Derrick's website in the chat box for anyone who would like to take a look at that.
Excellent. Well, hey, I really appreciate the opportunity today to share my storm and raise awareness. It's been an honor being here today. If anybody has any questions, or if there's anything that you feel I could do one-on-one or in a session like this, please please reach out to me on LinkedIn. Be more than happy to have a conversation with you and see how we all can continue to to raise epilepsy awareness and someday find a cure for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.